Hey, yo, everyone, welcome to another episode of Lukman Nation. Oops, you see half of my green screen here. Oh boy, what a day this day is. Welcome to another episode in Lukman Nation, a new segment in Lukman Nation that I am calling the Black Labor Bulletin. Thank you so much for joining me this Friday night. You could have been anywhere else, but here you are watching Lukman Nation. Hopefully you're watching on Black Power Media, the most dangerous platform on social media, and you're watching Lukman Nation, the most dangerous show on social media. Thank you so much. I am the People's Prophetess, Jackie Lukman, averting a medical catastrophe here. So sorry that we started a little late as usual, trying to do too much and being reminded that I should not. But hey, here we are. And look at this. Here you are. Thank you so much for joining me. I see you, Toby. What's going on? Manny Nile, 2Fs. Hey, Franny, the Gem Mom, 93, Goddess Crew, Ayo, Sis, Eric Berkeley, Dorian, Deborah Rodriguez, Creative Experiments, John Kemper, Quaker Anarchist, Casey McIvor, let's see, Gardis Watts, Scribe, God Blessed. Thank you all so much for joining me tonight on this inaugural segment, this new segment where every second Friday, I want to focus on Black labor issues because I think it's important for us to do that. And I am really excited about tonight's show because, as I was saying earlier today on By Any Means Necessary on Radio Sputnik, and if you don't listen to our show, By Any Means Necessary on Radio Sputnik, Sean Blackman and I host that show every weekday on Radio Sputnik from 2 to 4 p.m. Eastern Time each weekday. You can watch us do the second hour of the show from 3 to 4 p.m. Eastern Time each weekday on rumble.com/c/BAM necessary. But you can listen to the entire show from 2 to 4 p.m. at sputniknews.com/radio. Scroll on down the page, click on our show, By Any Means Necessary. You can hear the previous day's show in its entirety, or you can go to sputniknews.com, click on the Listen Live button, and listen to our show live as it's broadcast from 2 to 4 p.m. Eastern Time each weekday. So as I was saying earlier on the show today, it seems like we're in this pivotal moment in this country, and if not around the world, where I think there is a movement of something going on. The working class, the masses are getting fed up. And I think this has been true in other countries more recently. And I think it's finally coalescing again in the United States. So I'm really excited that tonight, for the inaugural episode of the Black Labor Bulletin, which I hope to bring to you every second Friday of every month, I'm really excited that we're going to be talking about the possible upcoming UPS strike. And we're not going to just have this conversation with me. No. I am very happy to introduce to you tonight Mr. Richard Hooker, who is the current Secretary Treasurer of Teamsters Local 623, Secretary Treasurer and Principal Officer of Teamsters Local 623 Richard Hooker. Thank you so much, Mr. Hooker, for joining me on this special episode of Lukman Nation. Welcome.
Thank you so much for having me. It's an honor to be here.
Really glad that you agreed to come on my show because by any means necessary on Radio Sputnik, that's the day job, and I'm very glad to do that job. But we our segments are shorter, and because we are broadcast live on the radio, we are subject to FCC rules, so there are certain things we cannot say.
All right.
But this is not so on my show. So, whatever comes to your mind, however you would like to express it, you are free to express it however you feel it will be most impactful. So let's get right into it. On
All right.
July 31st, is that the deadline for negotiations between the Teamsters and UPS workers and UPS, the company, to come to an agreement on the workers' demands? Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am. So July 31st is the expiration of our current contract. If we don't have an agreement by August 1st, then we will be on strike.
So, for people who are not familiar with what's going on at UPS with the workers and why there are talks of a possible strike, why you are in contract negotiations, why those negotiations have broken down, what if people haven't been paying attention, Richard, what's going on with UPS workers that you're threatening to strike now?
Well, UPS workers, our members, they are fed up with just the conditions of our buildings. I mean, you're talking about unsafe conditions, the culture that UPS has created of hostility and just harassment. These things happen on a day-to-day basis, and then you're talking about our part-timers who make up around 60 to 65% of the workforce. They're low-wage workers, and when you talk about the pandemic and what those profits look like for UPS and what that pain looked like for our members, you can see why our members want more. 97% of our members voted to go on strike if we have to. So this is not just about wages and benefits and pensions. This is about everyday working environments at each UPS location. And our members are just fed up. We saw what UPS, how much money they made, and we know how they made it. They made it off the back of our members. So our members are listening like, hey, we want you to be profitable. We do, but make sure you share the wealth. We're not looking to get rich or, live in mansions or anything like that. We're just looking what's fair and equitable.
I love that you said that the workers aren't looking to get rich, that they're not looking to live in mansions. They just want what's fair and equitable. Explain to people why the pay for UPS workers is not fair and equitable. And then I want to talk about some of the working conditions that you mentioned that led UPS workers to get to this point.
So when you look at our part timers, their starting rate is 15.50 right now.
Mm-hmm.
But in some areas, UPS had to come up with this market rate adjustment, or MRA is what we call it, because they couldn't keep people. Nobody wants to come in and do that back breaking work for $15 when you can go to other places like Amazon and McDonald's and get more money by doing a less strenuous job.
Wow.
So what they did in some areas was raise the starting pay for these workers up beyond $20. In the pandemic, in our area, they raised it up to $22.
Mm-hmm.
And so just think about this for a minute. I'm a single parent. I go from $15.50 up to $22, and I'll make that for 2 years straight.
Right.
Now I'm able to take care of my responsibilities better. It's easier on me. Take care of my family. I'm able to do a lot more things with my family that I couldn't do. And so all of a sudden, UPS takes that money from you without notice. So now I'm a single parent. My pay drops almost $7, and UPS just doesn't care. Now UPS comes out with these market, and say, hey, we just made $13.9 billion in profit after you just took $7 away from me. How you think that makes me feel? I'm the reason why you made that profit. and you took it away from me. So there's that issue. And then you have also, there was a situation between our drivers. We had these hybrid drivers, and then you had the regular package car drivers. What UPS did was exploit these hybrid drivers, making them do the same work, the same job as a regular package car driver, but pay them $7 less an hour. They don't get the same protections. They don't get the same work benefits, and so they just exploited these workers. And now we're looking to make sure that every worker gets a fair day's pay for a fair day's work. If I'm a driver, pay me as a driver. If you could pay me $22 during the pandemic and you make all this money, you can pay me $22 now. And so that's why you see the fight between wages, because it's all over the place. And that's why you see worker against worker. Hey, how are you making this more, this money, and I'm doing the same job you're making? I'm doing the same job you're doing. What's up with that? That's what UPS likes. They likes for us to fight against each other. And so hopefully in this contract, that'll be settled. Everybody will be on the same baseline, equal work for equal pay.
Yeah, that surprise pay cut after the pandemic was unconscionably evil and brutal across industries. There was all this talk. We all remember all this talk and all these signs that were all over the place. And I'll never forget, my late husband and I went to we were driving around just to be out of the house during the pandemic. We go to McDonald's, and there's this sign there, oh, we salute our heroes, and all of this, and free coffee for delivery drivers, the truck drivers that brought McDonald's supplies. And my husband was a truck driver himself, and he asked the lady in the drive-through, so if I come in and if I came in and I was driving the truck for the supplies, I would get free coffee. But you have to be here at work every day. Do you get free coffee? And she actually had to think about that. She was like, you know what, sir? I don't get free coffee.
Wow.
And she was visibly upset when she realized the hypocrisy in that saluting the heroes and giving the heroes, the people who are keeping the economy running, that extra money and giving them little extra incentives. But here she is having to come to work every day, a McDonald's employee, and she's not considered a hero. And across the board, in those kinds of campaigns, those cynical little campaigns that the capitalists waged during the pandemic, giving people a carrot to keep forcing them to come to work. When the pandemic was quote unquote over, even though people are still contracting and dying from COVID, even though when the pandemic was over, then they took that extra money away. There's no more, salute to our heroes, and so this happened to UPS drivers as well. But I want to raise an issue that actually I want to make sure I don't lose this comment from, and I hope you don't mind, because I want to engage our viewers who have questions and they want to, comment. So I'm going to bring up a few comments and questions that they may have for you, Richard. Goddess Crew said, and the warehouse worker sorting all these packages, don't forget them.
Absolutely.
Does this include warehouse workers for UPS, and how do they factor into these negotiations and this issue with UPS?
Well, yes, the contract covers the warehouse workers, but again, and I'm glad she asked that question, because, well, made that statement, I should say, because they are forgotten. Everybody talks about the delivery driver. That's the face of the company. But the backbone and the blood of the company are the part-timers and the inside warehouse members who don't get to shine as a package car driver or over-the-road driver, right? They don't make as nearly as much. They work in, some hostile conditions. It's very, very hot, especially in the warehouse where there's no air conditioning, just like the trucks. There's a lot to be said about the trucks not having AC, but the warehouse don't have AC either. That's another part, right? Yeah.
There was a heat wave
Mm-hmm.
across the country. The highest temperatures in July in 125 years in this country. Next week, it's going to get hotter. So next week, we'll set another heat record. And there is no AC in the warehouses where people work all day. How many hours a day do warehouse workers typically work?
So if you are a part timer, you can work anywhere from your daily guarantee, which in some areas and some shifts is 3.5 hours, up to about 5, 6 hours. Then you have your full time inside workers that work between 8 and 10 hours a day. The only places where the air conditioning is working is in the management offices. There is no relief, no air conditioning in these warehouse buildings. And I know the package car drivers, they get, again, they're the face of the company, and they get the shine. And then people talk about, there's no air conditioning in the trucks, which is not, and it should be. But don't forget about the warehouse workers as well, because they deserve air conditioning. It gets just as hot. People have died in the warehouse, just like in the truck.
Oh my
People
God.
have gotten injured and passed out, just like on the truck. And again, this is where UPS likes to use the divide and conquer. They talked about the driver getting the air conditioning, but what about the warehouse person? What about their relief from the heat, right? And this is where I think us as Teamsters, we have to do a better job in making sure that we take care of everybody and not just a PR moment where the company can look good. Hey, look at us, we got air conditioning. Well, what about the people on the inside, right? And there's more people on the inside than truck drivers. So
Hmm.
yeah, it's an issue. It's an issue with the warehouse and not being properly ventilated, and also making sure they have some really cool solutions and not just word of mouth.
I mm. There was something I had in my mind to ask you, and it was a fleeting thought, but I'll come back to it, because I'm glad that D. Musa Springer is here, because he wants to know from you. My uncle is a UPS driver of 12 years who's very non-political and nervous about a strike. What kind of advice or encouragement could Musa give his uncle?
I would tell your uncle that we're going to win, whether we strike or not. The workers are going to win. UPS does not make, produce, manufacture anything without us. Your uncle is a very important cog to what UPS does. If your uncle and the rest of 340,000 members don't show up to work, UPS will find out very quickly how important we are. So I would just encourage your uncle, let him know that he's more important than what he thinks. A strike is not going to hurt the Teamsters or him as much as he think it is. It's really going to hurt the company, and really put them on blast and a notice to let them know that all those profits that you made are only made by us, your uncle. Your uncle made them a lot of profit. Now the company will never tell your uncle that, but he was a big part in those profits. And I would just tell him, be encouraged. Don't lose hope. Don't lose faith. The Teamsters are going to win. The workers, as we see in this country right now, there is nothing more important than labor right now in
Hmm.
this country. And I think we see it everywhere. The writers are going on strike. The actors are going on strike. You got Waffle House members down south, they want to go on strike. So workers across the country in every industry are waking up and saying, you know what, man, we make this country run. Look what we did during the pandemic. We kept America alive. If the workers don't go to work, America dies. If the
Mm.
Teamsters don't go to work, UPS dies. It's just that simple. So yeah, I would tell your uncle, don't lose hope, don't lose faith, don't lose heart. We're gonna win this fight. We're gonna win this struggle.
See, that's the kind of revolutionary optimism that can only come from a true worker and from
Hmm.
someone who is fighting for workers' rights. And so the question I had before, and thank you so much for speaking to Musa's question, and that was I really appreciate that, and I'm sure Musa does, and I really hope his uncle will appreciate it too. Um, One of the thing that I wanted to ask was that, didn't before the negotiations happened, didn't UPS make a big deal about saying publicly, okay, we're going to put air conditioning in the trucks. And that was supposed to be like UPS appearing to meet the workers' demands, but they didn't even really do that.
So UPS is very good at manipulating the narrative and making it seem like they're doing something that they're really not. They're very, very good at that. And that's why people have to really pay attention. So when they came out with this, hey, finally, UPS trucks are going to have air conditioning. Everybody was like, "Oh man, finally!" But when you really look at it, what it's saying is, if you look at the language from what we're told, is it's only going to be for trucks purchased after the new year. So January 1, 2024,
2024.
right? Those trucks are going to have air conditioning. But if you in UPS world, you know UPS is going to buy all the trucks they can right now between now and January, so they won't have to buy and put air conditioning in the trucks. So all the trucks that are purchased before January are not going to have air conditioning. So we still going to be out there in the heat. We're still not going to have the relief. People still going to be passing out. UPS still going to be making billions while our members are dying. So that's why people really got to pay attention. All they did was have a PR stunt. Hey, look at us. We care about our workers. No, they don't. This is for the public to kind of make it look like the Teamsters are being unreasonable and greedy and, oh my God, they want to shut us down. No, this is UPS being UPS. They are very dishonest. They really like to manipulate the situation. I can take you guys back to when COVID first hit, and we were fighting with them to get PPE, and I mean, some of our facilities didn't even have clean running water. It was so bad, and we would talk to them. Hey man, what y'all going to do? Now you didn't see that, but what you saw was a big plane loaded up with masks and gloves and all this stuff to try to make it look like they were doing the right thing for us. But back in the facilities, we didn't even have clean running water. Our trucks were dirty, trash everywhere. But you didn't see that. All you saw was a plane filled with face masks and gloves because they wanted to portray this image of, hey, we're really fighting for our members. We're fighting for our workers. Listen, they're not doing that. UPS, I'm gonna tell you this. UPS didn't care about COVID until they started catching COVID. Then that's when it's, oh man, we really got to start doing something now. We really got to start paying attention because now our management, our high level management, is getting sick of this disease, and now we're serious now. But if my worker who's is in that truck, if he catch it, all we care about is them package. We don't care if he catch it. We don't care if he die. We don't care if he bring it home to his family. That's who UPS is.
So what so so if the plane full of PPE didn't go to the workers in the warehouse or the drivers, where'd the PPE
Well,
go?
it did go to us, but it was after the push
Oh.
and the fight. So we had to really drag their name through the mud in order to get this stuff, and they really had to start catching it. Because I had to go on TV. I think I was on all kind of media outlets, just letting them know, hey, this is what UPS is really doing. And the videos that were being broadcast on national TV with the water not working, trash everywhere, dirty trucks, then they started moving.
Mm.
They started moving then, and then when they started catching it, they really started moving then. But UPS is not going to move unless it affects them. That's just the bottom line.
Okay. So I want to talk about the Teamsters in particular for a minute because, look, all labor struggles, particularly in this country, have a history that a lot of people don't know about. And the Teamsters is integral to a lot of that history. Not all of it is great. There are some issues with the Teamsters history that, the mob connections and all that
Yeah.
kind of stuff. Me personally, I would like the Teamsters to be mob connected again. That's just me. That's just me and my
What?
weird
Oh,
look. I'm I think there's a way that needs to that capitalists need to be dealt with, and it ain't nice. But that's just I'm just being funny right
got you,
now.
got you.
I don't mean that seriously. Um, I,
Ah,
I just think it would make for some entertaining discourse.
right. It would. It
But
would.
But what do you say to people who are mistrustful of the Teamsters, of labor unions in particular, because or in general rather, because of the propensity for some labor unions, particularly in the management levels, to have been co-opted by the very capitalists that workers are fighting against, the very neoliberal policies that workers want to dismantle. What do you say to people who are like the Teamsters? Why would we mess with them? They were mobbed up and then all. What do you say to people who have a problem, who are mistrustful of labor, of organized labor unions because of that difficult history?
Well, the reason why I'm sitting in this position is today because I misguided, and I trusted our leadership at the time to do the right thing, and come to find out that, like you said, a lot of going along with the company and these managements and not really sticking up for our
Mm-hmm.
members. So instead of just complaining about it, so, oh man, the teams are no good, the leadership is no good, I decided to say, you know what, why not get involved and change it the way it needs to be. We can't keep pointing the finger at everybody else and then sit on the sideline when these things happen. And that's what I did. We ran for office, and we knew it was going to be a struggle because, you know when you look at the Teamsters leadership, it doesn't look like me. It's not reflective of anybody that looks like me.
Mm-hmm.
So that was a very um, difficult conversation I had with myself to say, hey, do you really want to do this? Because you know what's going to happen. You are the first African American leader in your local. It's never been a African American leader in my position in my local until I got here. You're talking about a local been around over 100 years.
Right.
And so now our local is predominantly African American, right? But you wouldn't know by looking at the previous leaderships, and that's in the international as well. You know, so we got involved. We started fighting back. And we just took it to the company, and we took it to the leadership, because we can't get so political that we forget who we really fighting for and who we're fighting against. Even though the Teamsters may be this organization who has a lot of issues, they are not the enemy, so to speak. It is always the employers. And so even with the Teamsters and their politics, I never lose sight of who the real enemy is. Because if you have a basis of fighting the employer and fighting for your members, that will take you to levels in Teamsters that politics can't, because your work will follow you, your reputation will follow you. And we've been doing work for so long. It's hard to argue with results. And what I would say to
Okay.
people,
Okay.
what I would say to people who don't trust their leaders, their union leaders, whatever, get more involved in the union. Go to union meetings. Find out what your bylaws say, what your constitution says. Learn the ins and outs of what's supposed to happen in your union. So when things happen that are wrong, you can challenge it and know what you're talking about. So then you can gain credibility. Then you can make the change that's needed on a leadership level in your organization. Because again, I'm living proof. I'm an example of what could happen if you just have a plan. You fight the company, and you take care of your members. Now it's gonna be some challenges, right?
Mm-hmm.
They're still gonna call you a monkey. They're still gonna use
Mm-hmm.
the N word. They still listen. I'm the principal officer. Check this out. I'm the principal officer of the largest Teamster local in Philadelphia, and they still see me as a monkey. Just think about
Wow.
that. That's never going to change. But I don't let that define me. It's not who they call you. It's who you answer to. I don't answer to none of them guys. They don't. I don't work for them. I work for my members. My members know what we do, and we got plenty of receipts to show it. So you just have to be very, very courageous. Don't be afraid, because if you're doing what you're supposed to do, nobody can stop you. It's just that simple.
I really appreciate you breaking that down because first of all, I have to admit I didn't know that you were the first black principal officer of your Teamsters local in basically the history of your Teamsters
in
local.
the entire existence, right?
I didn't know that. We didn't know that when we had you on by any means necessary. Did not did just learn that now. So this is even more dope, I think. And this is coming from someone from who politically I don't get into the first black anything because in a capitalist system, what does that really mean? But when we're talking about fighting for black workers in a capitalist corporation having to deal with racism in the labor union, but also using the very structure of that labor union to fight for the black members of that labor union. And because you're fighting for the black members of your local, you're also fighting for all UPS workers. This to me is like the foundation of why black labor or the living example right now of why black labor is at the foundation of every labor struggle in this country and always has been. Always, because if black workers are paid well, decent benefits, treated
Uh-oh. Hello, hello. Uh, uh-oh.